In the early morning of October 7, 2022, in the quiet town of Yinghua, China, a man named Mr. Liu was woken by an unusual sound. It was the sound of high car engine on the deserted mountain where he lived. 2 days later, high feeling of suspicion grew in him. He followed the tracks left by the car's wheels. The tracks led him to a patch of freshly disturbed earth inch high small nearby forest. Feeling that something was wrong, Mr. Liu immediately told his sister everything when she came to visit him on the mountain. His sister understood that the story was not ordinary. She did not hesitate. She went down the mountain right away to inform the person who had the rights to use that land. The news was then quickly reported to the town leaders. The town leaders realized this was a serious matter. They asked the local police station to send officers up the mountain to investigate. As soon as they received the order, police officers arrived at the location Mr. Liu had pointed out. The scene was immediately secured. At first glance, it was clear that this was an area that had been hastily and carelessly backfilled. Believing it might be a crime scene, a team of forensic experts from the public security bureaus of Shifang and Diang cities was called in to assist. The authorities quickly cordoned off and began to excavate the site. Just beneath a shallow layer of soil, they found the body of a young woman, perhaps between 20 and 30 years old. The poor soul was lying on her back in the shallow grave. It was noted that the upper part of her body was not clothed. It was only covered by a white shirt, and on top of that, a thin, light pink jacket. She was still wearing blue jeans on her lower body. The search of the scene was widened to the surrounding area, but the results were not very helpful. Besides the victim and the clothes placed upon her, the investigators found no other personal items. There was no handbag, no phone, and most importantly, no form of identification to tell them who she was. The scene was almost intentionally clean. This suggested that the killer had acted very carefully to hide the victim's identity and to erase any trace that could lead back to him. News of a young woman's body found buried on the mountain spread quickly through the nearby villages. It caused great shock and fear in the community. The thought that something from a movie could happen right where they lived frightened everyone. For the investigation team, the pressure was now immense. 2 urgent questions needed answers. Who was the victim? And what was the cause of her death? Based on the condition she was found in, a young woman with her upper clothing in disarray, the investigators formed 2 initial theories. First, it could have been a crime of passion resulting from a romantic conflict. Second, it might have been a sexual assault followed by murder to silence the victim. Both theories suggested that the killer and the victim may have known each other. The police focused on reviewing security camera footage based on Lia's testimony about the strange car. After careful screening, they identified a white SUV. The license plate ended with 6MME7. It had entered the area of the crime scene in the early morning of October 7th. The vehicle had driven into Yinghua town in the early hours and left a few hours later. All the details matched. The first crucial clue had appeared. Now, the police's task was to find out who owned the car with the license plate ending in 6MM7. The white SUV with the license plate ending in 6MM7 became the focal point of the investigation. The owner was identified as Liu Tao, born in 1990, a native of Yinghua town itself. The police immediately arrested Liu Tao at his residence in Chengdu. Faced with undeniable evidence, Liu Tao admitted to taking the victim, a 28-year-old woman named He Ling, to his hometown to bury her. He also admitted to throwing her belongings into a river to destroy the evidence. At the police station, facing sharp questions and the initial evidence, Liu Tao appeared quite calm. However, that calmness did not last long. When the investigators showed him the image of his white SUV captured by the security camera near the scene, he began to show signs of confusion. Finally, after some internal struggle, Liu Tao bowed his head and confessed to his actions. Liu Tao stated that the woman buried on the mountain was named He Ling, 28 years old. He admitted that he was the one who drove her from Chengdu to the mountain in his hometown on the morning of October 7th to bury her. He also added that on his way back to Chengdu while crossing High River in Luoshui town, he stopped the car. He threw her entire handbag, identification papers, phone, and other personal items into the river to destroy evidence and make it difficult to identify her. Liu Tao's initial confession revealed the victim's identity and his act of concealment. But the biggest question remained unanswered. How did Ling die? What had Liu Tao done to her? What was their relationship, and what conflict led to this tragic end? Liu Tao's statement about the cause of Ling's death was still vague and full of contradictions. The investigation still had a long way to go. But first, a heartbreaking task had to be done to notify the victim's family. While the Sichuan police were working hard to solve the case, Inch had place far away, another desperate search was taking place. It was the search by Mr. He Changmin and his wife for their only daughter, Ling. Ling, born Inch 1994, was the pride and hope of her parents. They had lost contact with their daughter since the afternoon of October 6th. All calls and messages went unanswered. This made them extremely worried, and they decided to return to Chengdu to find her. Just before receiving the terrible news from the police, during the days his daughter was missing, He Changmin felt frantic. On October 13th, while at work, he was distracted and twisted his ankle, but he paid no mind to his injury. Together with his wife, he decided to set off for Chengdu immediately to find their daughter. Little did they know that the daughter they were anxiously waiting for was already lying forever under the cold earth of a distant mountain. They could not have imagined that this journey home would be to face the most painful news of their lives. On that very day, October 13th, while they were on their way, they received a call. But it was not from their beloved daughter. On the other line were the police from Sichuan province. The news about Ling had finally come. But it was like a knife stabbing straight into the hearts of two people who had spent their entire lives working for their child. On September 21, 2023, the Intermediate People's Court of Diang City officially opened the public trial of the case. The defendant, Liu Tao, was prosecuted by the prosecutor's office on 2 charges: intentional homicide and, in the courtroom, facing the man who had caused their family's tragedy, Ling's parents could not contain their anger and grief. Before the tragedy, they had never heard their daughter mention the name Liu Tao. A big question hung over the trial. What conflict could have existed between these two people who seemed to have no deep connection? What really happened on that fateful day of October 6th? And why did Liu Tao, after admitting to burying the body, firmly deny that he had killed the victim? According to the case file presented in court, the two had met through an online chat application around the beginning of September 2022. This was only about a month before the incident occurred. They were not close. They could not even be considered friends. Their relationship was merely casual. So what was Liu Tao's motive? At the trial, Liu Tao gave a shocking testimony, completely contradicting what he had initially confessed to the police. He said, Met did not push her. She jumped on her own. The investigation team had to rely on forensic analysis and scientific experiments to expose the killer's lies and reconstruct the truth of those 5 fateful hours. The truth was about to be revealed. Mutt did not push her. She jumped on her own. Liu Tao's defense in court completely denied that he had directly caused Ling's death. He tried to paint a picture where he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and his subsequent act of burying her was only due to panic. According to his testimony in court, he had arranged to meet Ling that day for only one reason: to introduce her to a job. He said that he and Ling only drank tea and chatted about work, and that there was no major conflict. He even made up a story that Ling refused to leave and asked to borrow 2,000 yuan from him. However, this testimony immediately revealed inconsistencies. The police investigation had uncovered an ironic truth. At the time of the incident, Liu Tao himself was unemployed. His wife confirmed that he had been fired from a furniture company not long before. He was deep in debt from gambling and online loans, and even had to mortgage his car to make ends meet. How could a man struggling to find a job for himself possibly offer a good job opportunity to someone else? Clearly, the excuse of high job introduction was just a fabricated story. What was Liu Tao's real purpose in luring Ling to his old company? And what was the truth about the young woman's fall? To answer these questions, We must return to the crime scene and follow the investigators as they used forensic science to reconstruct the truth. Three big questions were posed to the special investigation team. 1. Did Liu Tao directly push He-Ling? 2. Was it possible that He-Ling took her own life? If both of the above were ruled out, what forced He-Ling to choose the dangerous escape route through the window? To answer the first question, the investigators relied on undeniable evidence. Data from the security camera outside the building. A frame-by-frame analysis showed that at 20:51 and 12 seconds on the evening of October 6th, Liu Tao appeared alone on the first-floor staircase. He did not go to buy things as he claimed. He only moved his car from the courtyard to the roadside and then immediately returned to the stairs to go up. At exactly 20:53 and 2 seconds, the sound of the impact was heard as He-Ling's body hit the ground. The total time from when Liu Tao started to return until He-Ling fell was about 1 minute and 50 seconds. Was this enough time for him to go up to the third floor, enter the room, have high struggle, and push the victim out of the window? To verify this, the police conducted a detailed experiment. They asked a young man, 1.83 meters tall, and with high similar build to Liu Tao, to reenact the entire process. The experiment showed that if he walked normally from the first floor to the office door on the third floor, it took 41 seconds. To walk from the door to the window took another 14 seconds, for a total of 55 seconds. If he ran as fast as possible, the time to reach the office door was about 20 seconds, and to get to the window was 27 seconds. Thus, even inch the fastest case, Liu Tao would have had only a little over a minute after entering the room. This was too short high time for high struggle to overpower and to push an adult out of a window. Based on this scientific evidence, the investigation team concluded that the theory of Liu Tao directly pushing He-Ling was ruled out. So, the second possibility, did He-Ling end her own life? The answer lay in the trace evidence analysis at the scene, an important field in forensic science. Experts found a logical sequence of traces that told a completely different story. First, on a ceramic flower pot placed right next to the window, experts found an incomplete but identifiable shoe print that matched the type of shoes He-Ling was wearing. This indicated that she had to step on the flower pot to climb onto the windowsill. Second, on the stone windowsill, there were friction marks left behind, consistent with someone using their hands to hold onto the sill to slowly lower themselves down. Third, and most importantly, on the corrugated metal roof below, right at the point where it was broken, experts found two parallel footprints. This proved that He-Ling had landed on the roof with both feet intentionally, not as if she had fallen or jumped uncontrollably. This series of traces reconstructed a deliberate and very careful action. He-Ling stepped on the flower pot, climbed onto the windowsill, used her hands to steady herself, and then slowly placed her feet onto the metal roof below, which she believed could support her weight. This was the action of someone trying to escape, an effort to find life, not the desperate act of someone who wanted to die. The suicide theory was also ruled out. So the answer to the third question became clearer. He-Ling could not escape through the main door because it had been disabled from the outside. Liu Tao, in his early confessions when he was first arrested, admitted to this act. He claimed that, because he was afraid He-Ling would leave and call the police after they had a scuffle, he used a wooden plank he found in the hallway to jam the door shut. Although the wooden plank was gone by the time the police returned to the scene with Liu Tao, cleaned away by the janitorial staff. The testimony of company employees confirmed that there used to be several wooden planks in that area. To further support this, an experiment was conducted. Investigators used a similarly sized wooden plank to jam the office door, which opened inwards. The result was just as expected. The door was locked tight and could not be opened from the inside, no matter how much force was used. At this point, a clear and tragic picture of those 5 fateful hours emerged. Liu Tao had lured He-Ling to an empty office during the National Day holiday with the excuse of high job introduction. There, he revealed his malicious intentions. Liu Tao's initial confession, which he later tried to deny, admitted to a series of disgusting acts. He had molested her, attempted to commit a vile act but failed due to He-Ling's resistance. When He Ling insisted on calling the police, Liu Tao switched from persuasion to coercion and threats. He struggled with her, tore her clothes, and used his phone to take sensitive photos to force her into silence. He took her phone, cutting off all communication with the outside world. And finally, he locked her in the dark room with high wooden plank. Imagine being in He Ling's position at that moment. A 28-year-old woman, lured to high strange place, trapped in high dark room by a man she had only just met online. Her phone was taken, the main door was blocked. She was completely isolated and did not know what terrible things would happen next. Her fear was at its peak. The moment Liu Tao left the room, she knew it was her only chance to escape. Darkness surrounded her, but through the window, she saw the faint light of the night outside. It was the light of hope. She quickly put her clothes back on and tried to open the door, but it was useless. And then, she heard Liu Tao's footsteps returning. The footsteps grew closer and inched the quiet night. They sounded like a countdown from death itself. With no time to hesitate, she made a reckless decision. She stepped on the flower pot, climbed out the window, and tried to land on the metal roof below. But she had misjudged the strength of the old roof. One wrong step, and the tragedy occurred. He Ling's fall was not a random accident, nor was it suicide or a push from another person. It was the inevitable result of a series of actions by Liu Tao, of imprisonment, threats, and deprivation of freedom. It was he who created a dangerous situation with no way out, forcing He Ling to choose between staying to face an unknown danger and escaping through a risky path. His actions were the direct cause of that fateful fall. His lies were completely exposed by forensic science. The truth about the cause of the fall had been clarified. But Liu Tao's crimes did not stop there. It was his actions in the time after He Ling fell that were the most horrifying. They clearly showed his inhuman nature and provided the strongest legal basis for prosecuting him for intentional homicide. The security footage recorded the entire sequence of events. After falling from a height of over 10 meters, He Ling did not die instantly. She was still conscious and let out a desperate cry for help. At this moment, Liu Tao had a critical choice to make. If he had called an ambulance, if he had called for help, the story could have taken a completely different turn. A life could have been saved, and the legal nature of the case would have changed. But he did not do that. Liu Tao's first action when he rushed down was not to check the victim's injuries. He saw the owner of a nearby restaurant, attracted by the loud noise, coming out to see what was happening. Instead of asking for help, Liu Tao deliberately stepped forward. He used his body to block the person's view of He Ling lying on the ground. And he lied that nothing had happened. He intentionally prevented He Ling's chance of being helped by others. This was a deliberate act to cover up his crime. After the neighbor went back inside, Liu Tao approached He Ling. According to his own testimony at the police station, He Ling was still conscious at this time. She was groaning in pain, telling him that she had lost feeling in the lower part of her body, and begging him to save her. Faced with that plea, what did Liu Tao do? He grabbed her severely injured body and dragged her into a hidden corner under the stairs. Medical experts confirmed that moving a victim who has fallen from a height so brutally could cause extremely serious secondary injuries, making the victim's condition even worse. Next, he drove his SUV into the courtyard. Instead of placing He Ling in the back seat where she could be more comfortable, he opened the trunk. He heartlessly stuffed her body, writhing in pain, into the cramped space of the luggage compartment, a place completely unsuitable for transporting an injured person. And the cruelty did not stop there. Even after putting He Ling in the car, he did not immediately go to the hospital. The camera recorded him going back up to the third floor twice. What was he doing? He was not going back up in high panic. He was going up to systematically clean up. He took the jacket and bra that He Ling had not had time to put on. He found her shoes that had been flung off. And most importantly, he took her handbag containing all her identification papers. He was trying to erase all traces that proved He Ling had ever been there. This entire process, from the moment He Ling fell until Liu Tao's car drove away from the scene, lasted nearly 10 minutes. Those 10 minutes, for a victim with multiple injuries and internal bleeding, were the golden time for emergency medical care, the thin line between life and death. But Liu Tao used those precious 10 minutes not to save Ai's life, but to cover up his own crime. In court, Liu Tao stubbornly argued that he intended to take He Ling to the hospital but did not know the way. However, the recovered data from the navigation app on his phone exposed this blatant lie. There was no search history for any hospital. The first destination he searched for after leaving the scene was the Wangshan Cemetery, a deserted place nearby. And immediately after stopping at the cemetery for a moment, he set a new route. The destination was his hometown, Yinghua Town in Shifang City, nearly 100 kilometers away. The fateful journey lasted nearly 3 hours. In the dark, cramped space of the car trunk, no one knows what He Ling went through. Perhaps at first, it was excruciating pain and weak pleas for help. Then, gradually, it turned to despair as she realized the driver had no intention of saving her. And then, her consciousness slowly faded into the cold and solitude. Her life was taken away slowly and painfully, not by the fall, but by Liu Tao's cruel neglect. In the early morning of October 7th, when he arrived at the deserted mountain in his hometown, Liu Tao opened the trunk for the last time. He claimed that He Ling was no longer breathing at this point. He pulled her out of the car, and in the process, her clothes came off. But he did not even bother to dress her properly. He simply threw the pieces of clothing on top of her and hastily covered her with dirt. Just like that, her 28-year-old life was buried in silence. The court determined that Liu Tao's act of abandoning the victim to die after creating a dangerous situation constituted the crime of intentional homicide by indirect intent. Combined with the crime of fraud, Liu Tao was sentenced to death, with a 2-year suspension of execution. The suspended death sentence was the price Liu Tao had to pay for his series of cruel and selfish actions. The case is closed, but the pain it has left for the victim's family will never fade. He Ling's parents lost their only daughter. Liu Tao's family was also shattered by his crime. The tragic story of He Ling is a profound warning. It shows that the line between a wrongful act and an unforgivable crime can sometimes be very thin. It lies in a single decision, a single choice. The choice between facing responsibility or trying to run away. Between saving a life or letting it perish for one's own selfishness. In that decisive moment, Liu Tao chose the path of high monster. A path that destroyed a young woman's life, pushed 2 families into a tragic abyss, and put an end to his own future.